Okay, we're going to do our piston install. As you can see, I've already got the crank in here. That's pretty straightforward. Bearings that go on the top, bearings go on the bottom, torque them down. One thing you want to make sure, after you've checked your clearances and all that stuff, and you've torqued it down, you want to make sure that the crank spins very freely. I've got some very thick engine lube, assembly lube on here, and it's cold in the garage. But when it's a little bit warmer, this crank would turn on its own because it's externally balanced. And without the flex plate on there, it would sit there and turn on its own. So it is very free, nice straight crank. All right, so the piston, I've already got, if you can see it, I've already got the ring compressor on it. I've got another clip I'll show you with that. The bearing's already in it. Okay, going to be installing pistons today. I've got the rings on already. Just a couple pieces of information here. The oil expander ring, if you can see that, the end is right there. You want to make sure the two oil rings, their gaps are on the opposite side from it. So the lower one's over here, and my top one's there. And then we're going to put the compression rings 180 degrees away from one another. So the top is going to be up there. And have these where they belong right away, but the bottom will be there. We'll have the top there. If we can see that. Bottom, top, 180 degrees away from one another. As I get ready to put them in, we'll split our rod. It's a brass hammer, so you can tap any type of metal without worrying about dinging it. These rods are put together very tight. With any rod, you'll see they're stamped. You want to make sure those go together. They are honed precisely. I got the bearing halves here. I'm being very careful. I don't have gloves on, but I'm being very careful not to touch the bearing surface with my hands, just because you don't want the acids of your hands touching them or anything. Making sure the caps are clean, and I've already cleaned these with brake clean to get any oil residue off. But before I put it into, I'm using a ring compressor from Summit Racing. It's good from 4-inch to 4.09 pistons. I've already adjusted it to these pistons, which are a 4030. I want to make sure they have a little bit of oil on there, so I have a rag. I'm going to put a little oil on and just give them a little bit of oil. When I go to put them in this cylinder, I'll also lubricate the cylinder. But got a little bit of oil on the rings now. Make sure my gaps are where they belong. Feed my ring compressor up there. Double check where my ring ends are. And start to feed that through. That's good. Now I can put this in the block and press it the rest of the way in. I'm going to put one of my bearings in right now. These should stay in place nicely when I pound them in. The top bearing is in. Push that down on the edges. Lower bearing is in. These are ARP rod bolts, and the part number on these is an 84 or 8740. So they're supposed to be torqued to 45 foot-pounds. They're already lubed. They came from SCAT that way. Whatever components you're using, make sure you check the specs that they require. And we're back to putting the engine. I'm going to be starting with, rotate the engine around. I'm going to do number 1. I'm not going to touch the journal there, but I'm going to get it out of the way. I've already got the bearing in there, so I'm going to put some assembly lube on it. And this assembly lube is thick, but it's cold in the garage here, so it is really thick right now. I've had some oil on my fingers, so I'm not worried about touching the bearing surface, especially since there's plenty of assembly lube on it. I'll set that there for now. I've got the bottom half also ready to go. And we'll cover that with the engine assembly oil also. That looks pretty good. I'll set that out of the way, wipe my fingers off. Okay, now this piston, it's a dish piston. There's only one way it can go in. Some pistons will have a mark which way the front of the engine goes. This piston is self-explanatory. It's got to go in this way. Again, you double check your rod. You can see that's the flat surface. That's going to go next to the other rod. That's chamfered. That's going to go towards the outside of the journal. So this is number 1. And this is good to go. I've already oiled the cylinder. I've already oiled the piston. I'm going to drop it in there. Journal out of the way. Don't want to ding anything. Sometimes you can push by hand. Get it started. Make sure it's square. Make sure the rod's not hitting anything. This is a rubber dead blow hammer. Just using the handle. And it is in. Again, a Summit ring compressor I've been using. So I see the rod coming out the bottom. Get it close. I can spin the rod up into it. Everything's going to stay in place. I've got the cap right here. I'm going to set it out of the way for the second. Rotate that around. Again, these caps, they're stamped with what goes together. I've got the blank side facing up, which goes along with the chamfer. Start it that way. The dowels on these are very tight, which is a great thing. Run the screws in a little bit. And this one, just gonna tap. believe that got it started. That gap looks good. That gap looks good. And that's it. I just snugged it down. I have to torque them. Make sure everything's still free once I do torque them. That's it. That's how you install the pistons and rods. Got 7 more to go. I'll be back. Okay, got my torque wrench set to 45 foot-pounds. I'm gonna come up nice and even on both sides. There, you hear that click? That click again. Double check, nice and slow. Yep. Okay, that's set to 45 foot-pounds per ARP spec. And you just want to see it moves back and forth nice and easy. We got clearance there. It's not binding. We're good to go. Like I said, 7 more to go.